Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live Multispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it's a free call. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you this hour as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. This is, again, part of our special edition episode. So this episode is coming to you live Monday night. We'll just start at the beginning of the hour because we've usually gone through this at the end of the hour. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of this. So what we're doing is we're doing a series of special episodes. We're trying out a couple different formats, trying to include people in a number of different ways. Mumble Room, of course, is open the entire time, mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org. Join us in the Mumble Room. Join us in our interactive chat room. We've got a new chat room. It is hashtag Ask Noah Show, and that is on, or pound Ask Noah Show. I'll get it right eventually, guys. That is over on FreeNAS. You can join us there. We're going to be doing a drawing on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock p.m., somewhere between the 6 and 7 o'clock hour, at the Tamarack Tap Room in Woodbury, Minnesota. We are going to have a celebration for our 100th edition episode. Now, we invite you to join us for that. We invite you to come out, and we invite you to join us for that. We're going to have a commemorative poster that we want you all to sign, and that poster will then be mounted and hung in the Ask Noah studio. So if you want to cement your place in Ask Noah history, come out and join us. As always, of course, you can do this from anywhere in the world. You can join pound Ask Noah Show in Freenode, and you'll be entered to win that $100 Amazon gift card. So we invite you to do that. Of course, the phone lines, as always, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. All sorts of ways to get in contact with the show. I want to, during these, I guess, special episodes, I want to focus on the things that we don't usually focus on. And one of the things that I think we lack is listener feedback. You guys have been absolutely fantastic about interacting with us over email, sending us in email, sending us questions, giving us feedback about the show. And of course, we always appreciate that. Sometimes they're not quite formatted. They're a little too long to actually read on air. And so I've kind of shied away from doing that. The other thing is that it always concerns me that my voice is too monotonous. If you get too much of Noah, I'm afraid that will kind of drive people off. So I like to get a little bit of mix in there with the callers, or sometimes we have some people that kind of guest host with me, those kinds of things. But during these special episodes, that's the point, is to try some of this stuff. And so we're going to try and incorporate some of that feedback. And so far, the feedback actually has been pretty positive. So you haters out there who are against what we're doing, you need to step up your game. Ashley writes into the program, says, "Hey, buddy, I know you've been seeking feedback about the things that you're incorporating into the show, and I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard, saying that what you've already done is great. New ideas are fantastic, but remember that your current stuff is not lacking in any way. I also have a question about a situation I'd like to get your opinion on." Well, Ashley, I am an expert on my opinion. Ashley writes, "In light of IBM and Red Hat, in light of the merger he's referring to, I have started to explore CentOS. Now, I'm a hardcore Ubuntu guy, but the 10-year support of CentOS is yelling at me. And after testing CentOS 7.5, I see that it only comes with PHP 5. Well, that version is EOL come December 31st, 2018, and I've had a tough time trying to install PHP 7.2. Is this something that is officially supported in any way? The only way I've been able to do it, which did not work, was to follow some magic command line script involving some guy named Remy's repo." He has a bonus question, which hopefully we're going to get here in a little bit. The answer to your question, Ashley, is yes, it is. Well, it's a mixture of yes and no. Yes, it is officially supported. No, it's not officially supported. Like there's an official way to unofficially install, or there's an unofficial way to officially install 7.2. And the way is through the EPEL repository. And this is essentially a repository of code that is not included by default in Red Hat, CentOS, or Scientific Linux, but that you can very easily add. And so the way to do that, and we'll have a link for you in the show notes at podcast.asknoahshow.com, essentially, you run the install command to install the EPEL repository. Once that's done, you install yum-utils. And then after that, you're able to actually enable the repository and install PHP 7.2. Now, I ran through this just before I got on here because I kind of wonder if this isn't the guide that you were, or if this wasn't the process that you were following. The repo for PHP 7.2 is I think what you're referencing, rpms.remirepo.net. But I did run through this in DigitalOcean on a droplet, which I spun up for next to nothing just to try this out, and it worked just fine on the latest version of CentOS that they offer. So I would invite you to give that a shot. If perhaps you had an outdated guide, maybe that's why it's not working. I'm not exactly sure. So I'll give you the guide that I know 100% for sure works. And of course, as always, you can always reach out to us, send us an email and say, hey, this isn't working and I need a little bit of extra help. Another way that you can get some help is through either the dedicated chat room that we are talking about or in our interactive Telegram group. Now, you can join that by going to telegram.asknoahshow.com. There, the conversation about Linux and open source continues 24/7, 365. That group has absolutely exploded. I used to think that we had to do drawings and stuff like that to boost membership, and mostly just to give people a thank you and show my gratitude for the fact that people are joining. But you know what? The group has grown, since our last drawing, has grown almost another 100 members, and I've not done anything. It's just taken off as a community of its own. And early on, there was some discussion. Do things have to be related to the show? No. I want it to be a community, a welcoming and opening place for anybody to show up and just have a conversation about Linux, whether you're brand new to it or you're a Linux veteran. We invite you to join us, telegram.asknoahshow.com, and become a part of that community. Now, coming up later in this hour, we have an exciting lineup. Patrick McBride, I'm so excited to have him. He is the Senior Director of Patents for Red Hat. Obviously, Red Hat in the news all over the place, but Patrick was able to find some time to join us here tonight on the Ask Noah Show to talk to us about Microsoft joining the Open Invention Network. Now, if you're not already familiar with the Open Invention Network, it's a pretty fantastic organization that's doing some very cool things. And I was not actually previously aware of this organization until Microsoft joined and I started reading some news about it. But essentially, the Open Invention Network is a patent pool. It's a group that goes out and tries to defend Linux. And in the name of defending Linux, what they do is they'll go find organizations that have patents and they'll say, hey, do you want to come on board and either give or sell us your patents, and or do you want to retain control of them, and you just agree as being one of our members that you will not aggressively pursue at all these other people that are, try and go after other people that are using those technologies, those patents. And so the idea is to have an open environment where we can all collaborate and all work together. I believe it was Ruth Seeley one time that said, when I was listening to her give a speak, and if you haven't heard Ruth Seeley speak, she's a fantastic speaker. And she said, our parents would kill us if they knew that in 2018, you were going to spend $1,000 on a cell phone that you couldn't so much as change the battery on. And that's where we are in 2018, is it not? Is that not where we have landed in 2018 with electronics? That we are spending $1,000 on a phone that we can't even so much as change the battery on, much less have administrative control or administrative access to the device? So organizations like the Open Invention Network, these people are changing this game up. They're reshaping the way that large entities look at open source and the way that large entities look at patents. And this is a very important part of the conversation. And as we get further into this tonight, I want to start addressing some of the realities and some of the impacts to the larger community. So that's coming up later in the hour. Also, tomorrow, 2 episodes Tuesday, we're going to have 2 episodes. The first is going to be at 3 p.m. Central. Now, that is going to be our Linux Stump the Chumps episode. I'm inviting my friends from Destination Linux. These are some of the smartest Linux people you'll ever meet, and I truly believe, and they truly believe, that with our forces combined, nobody can ask us questions that we will not be able to answer. If you think that I'm wrong about that, then we challenge you to call us. That'll be 3 p.m. Central. Of course, the phone lines will be open, as well as the interactive Mumble Room, mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org, or give us a call at 1-855-450-NOAA. That's 855-450-6624. We'll also be taking questions via email, live@asknoahshow.com. So make sure to join us for Stump the Chumps. That's Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central, at the same bat place. We'll be streaming it at asknoahshow.com, jblive.tv. It'll be on 88.3 FM here in Grand Forks, and we might even see if our friends of Destination Linux will be able to pick us up and restream us through their methods as well. So we're going to be all over the place. It's going to be a really fantastic collaborative effort, and I also think it's going to speak to something that we're going to dedicate an episode on Wednesday. So getting a little bit ahead of myself, Tuesday night is going to be our regular time, our regular place, our regular phone number. So we're going to take your calls. The idea being that this has been one of the most consistent live podcasts ever. We don't miss our live time. We changed our live time once in the history of the show, and that was we went from Mondays to Tuesdays. Since then, we've always been on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Central, and I can almost all but assure you that I am the guy that never changes. We'll make sure that that stays consistent. So we want to be a resource for the Linux community. People have Linux questions. They know, hey, here's the guy that you can call. Here's the community that you can reach out to, and they will take you by the hand. They'll walk you down the Linux aisle, as it were. So that's Tuesday at 6 p.m. Now, after the conclusion of Ask Noah on Tuesday, our friend from the Schmidt Show, Brad Schmidt, and I are going to be doing election coverage. Now, that's going to start at 8 p.m. So what I think we're going to do, because there's this 1-hour bridge in between the end of the Ask Noah show and the beginning of election coverage, and I need a little bit of time to get over there. I think what we're going to do is we are going to have a little bit of a community hangout. A lot of people have told me through these special episodes, their favorite part about them is just hanging out after the show. After the show is wrapped, we're not on the air, we just hang out. And I love doing that. I don't care if I get any show content out of it. Probably drives all of our producers and all the people that work on the show nuts, but I could care less. I just want to hang out with Linux nerds. And so if that's what we're going to do, let's do it. So we're going to do that Tuesday from 7 p.m. when the Ask Noah show gets over until 8 when election coverage kicks off. If you want to hang around for election coverage, that's great. If that's not for you, if politics aren't for you, that's cool too. Totally understand. But we'll have that content available for 8, and I don't know how late that's going to go. Probably super late. Now, Wednesday, that's the day you definitely don't want to miss. Wednesday is our celebration of our 100th edition of the Ask Noah show. People are coming from all over the country. I've heard from just all over the place people are coming, and it's going to be really fantastic. It's going to be a really great time. We're also going to be discussing some self stuff at our party, it sounds like. So got a group together that are going to discuss some Celtics Linux Fest, and we're going to incorporate that. Going to have some friends formerly from Red Hat and a special guest, hopefully, that will be able to make it directly from Red Hat. All those people are going to be there, and I'm so excited to celebrate our 100th edition of the Ask Noah show. What we're going to talk about, and I don't mind spoiling this just a little bit, we're going to talk about podcasting. And the reason is because November is podcast month. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, if you have something to say, if you have a voice and you want to do it, particularly if you're a Linux nerd, well, I have great news for you. Linux has all of the resources and tools that you need built right into the operating system to make a high-quality production on Linux. And at Altispeed Technologies, we are working our butts off around here to create services and an infrastructure around Linux to enable Linux users to do more podcasting with better audio quality that's easier and more accessible to people. And those that want to really take it to the next level, super high-end, ultra-professional, basically, radio or TV level broadcast, if that's what you want to do, we're going to have a solution for you too. And all of that we're going to talk about on Wednesday. So make sure to join us for that absolutely massive episode. It's going to be a great time. So hopefully you like all of this content that is coming at you. The download number seems to show that. Some of the interaction I'm getting with email and whatnot seems to show that people are appreciating that. If that's the case, please speak up. Join us. Again, pound Ask Noah Show in Freenode, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. Let me know what you're thinking, because I'd love to get your feedback on it. Now, I want to go, well, actually, here, let's do this. Before we move on, I want to go and touch on a second piece of feedback that came in. Because again, this is just too important. We've got to make sure that we're prioritizing listeners. This is an email from Frank. It says, it's Frank, KB1QZH from Stamford, Connecticut. I've called in before regarding raw images on my Olympus camera. I'm sticking to the 4/3 and fitting a Supermicro motherboard into an HP server tower. And he goes on to explain the process in which his camera was stolen and how he had to purchase a new camera, and he's had some difficulty trying to edit the raw files that come out of this Olympus camera in Linux. And of course, what we had recommended to him the last time was that he take a look at the open source version of Darktable. I think we actually, if I remember it, we actually asked him to send in some of his raw images, and I think we forwarded those on to some of the developers over at Darktable in hopes that they might have an answer. I'm not sure if that ever panned out or not. But he says, first, the raw files. Darktable has support for Olympus RAWs, but I also wanted to see what else was available for open source and started looking at Digicam. Both programs run on Linux and Windows, and so they have everything I want. I kind of want to get a hold of Brent Jarvis after hearing that he switched to an all open source photo workflow for Linux on Linux Unplugged, but haven't heard back when I use the contact form on his website. I want to build a home file server and a media server. Originally, I was going to go with FreeNAS, but several friends have suggested Rockstore. Besides storage, both offer containers and appliance-like, so family members can use it even if I'm away. How do you feel about Rockstore as an alternative to FreeNAS? Well, I have to be perfectly honest with you, Frank. I had not really played with Rockstore before. I looked into it a little bit after reading your email, and here's what I have to say. Looks like a fantastic product. Absolutely no reason you shouldn't go with Rockstore if it offers you something that you want. However, if you're just looking for a basic file server, even if you're not looking for a basic file server, even if you're looking for a very complicated file server, I'm going to still recommend that you stick with FreeNAS, and here's why. FreeNAS has a long, proven track history with high-quality file storage, and we have used it all over the place, from small businesses that have 4 employees all the way up to large, massive infrastructures that requires it to be installed on multiple different physical machines and them all to be connected together. And we've used FreeNAS in all of those situations, and it has never let me down. I guess the point really where the rubber met the road was I had just built a brand new FreeNAS box, had just put all of my data back onto it, and because I was in the middle of moving, I wasn't doing current backups, and one of my drives failed. And I called Alan Jude in a panic, and I said, Alan, you talked me into this FreeNAS thing, and now my server isn't working, and my hard drive crashed, and I'm really upset. And, well, all you have to do is disconnect the drive and put a new drive in, and then push the button, and, in his Canadian accent, I can't do it. But he told me to push this button, we put a new drive in, he told me to click a couple buttons and ran a couple commands, and boom, Bob's your uncle, server's back online, everything's working. And I guess that was kind of the moment where I went, aha, this is really fantastic. Oh yeah, this is why we put all of our clients on this stuff, because it just simply works. And so unless you have a really good reason to stray from FreeNAS, and mind you, I'm the Linux guy, I'm not the BSD guy. And you'll have to pry FreeNAS from my cold dead fingers before I'll ever use something else, because FreeNAS has just proven itself to be that reliable and proven itself to be that effective. And it scales so darn well, it's hard to ignore. Frank goes on to say, what would you suggest for an off-the-shelf router? I'm looking to replace my router with something newer as a way to set up a VPN so I can troubleshoot my mother's computers and stream media from overseas. That one's easy. We have since day one and continue to recommend the Microtechs, and here's why. The Microtech routers are an inexpensive device that run an operating system based on Linux called Router OS. Router OS is an operating system that has all of the capabilities of Cisco's iOS, but at a fraction of the price. So you can buy an entry-level Microtech router for about $35 on Amazon Prime with 2-day shipping available. Now, once you learn Router OS, turns out it's the exact same operating system that run on their $3,500 routers or their $35,000 routers. It doesn't matter how far up you go in the Microtech infrastructure, they all work basically the same. The only difference is in some of the higher end models, you're going to get more ports, and obviously they have, different speeds, and then you get into fiber and stuff like that. But all of the options are there no matter what. So you can learn the operating system, you can learn the CLI, and of course they have a web config, as well as a little Windows program thing that actually runs perfectly in OIN that a lot of Linux guys use. You can learn all of these things on an inexpensive device, and those skills will translate to real-world skills if you want to become a network engineer. So the reason I always recommend them, Frank, is because they're literally, you can't outgrow the device. You might, if you get over 250 users on the hex, then I guess you'd have to go to a larger processing unit because it can't handle can't handle that kind of processing. But you can't outgrow the device, and they're just so inexpensive. VPNs, you want to do a VPN? Here's how easy it is to do a VPN. You log into the router, just a basic VPN. There's obviously more complicated ways to set it up, and we've talked about that, I don't know, on this show, but I've certainly talked about it on the air before. You log into the device through the web config. You go to Quick Setup, click on a thing that says Enable VPN, enter in a password, Bob's your uncle, you got a VPN. It really is that simple. Now, if you want to start getting into OSPF and having that move some traffic around and do some of that for you, then it's going to take a little bit more configuration. You're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. Chris DeLuca and I have both set up a system with our MicroTrack routers where any router in the VPN network can fail. So I think he's got 5 in his and I've got 3. And any one of them can fail, and the other 2 will pick up the job of their fallen brother. And not to mention let us know that one of the routers has failed. And so he's doing it for, I'm not exactly sure what the business model that they're doing it for. I'm doing it for both hospitals and law offices, but they've got, these outboard clinics that they want to connect all back to the mothership. And so, these outbound clinics both have little RB 750s, and of course we've got a big 2011 or something at the main office, and they all connect in together. But the nice thing is, if the main clinic ever goes offline, either one of those RB 750s can pick up and say, okay, I'll make sure that just pull all your network resources over here and I'll handle them. And now we can redirect, so we can move a server, for example, from the main office over to one of the side offices, and the VPN network does not go down. They all kind of authenticate, so it's kind of a round robin deal. And it works very, very well. And Chris has set up something very, very similar, and we've both been very, very happy with our MicroTrack routers. That's what I would suggest you look into. He also goes on and he starts talking about VPN providers. And so, for example, he starts talking about the New Zealand and their digital search policies. Turns out there's an article from the Washington Post that talks about how there is such a thing as a digital strip search. And border agents will take your devices and they will, try to confiscate your devices, issue you a very large fine if you don't let them into your encrypted devices. So he asks for my take on that and my recommendation. And I do a lot of world traveling. I leave the country at least 2 or 3 times every year. Now, I tend to be kind of quiet about that. In fact, I've done shows as far away as Japan. And I tend to be a little quiet about that just because from a customer relationship standpoint, you don't necessarily want the owner of your company to be gallivanting around the world. Well, you're trusting them to run your network, right? So I don't advertise it a lot, but certainly travel quite a bit internationally. And the rule I follow is simple. I have a world traveling laptop, and my world traveling laptop is a Lenovo ThinkPad X240. And what it does is I have a dedicated drive in the thing. I don't encrypt it, and I don't put anything remotely sensitive. I have some movies that I've legally purchased, and I have those available as entertainment as I'm flying. I take a flash drive that is encrypted that has all of my company files on it. And what I know, but what the border agents don't know, is that they're welcome to confiscate that flash drive because it's already backed up. There's nothing that's on there that I don't already have a copy of. So in the unlikely event that I am stopped and they say, you have to decrypt this drive. First of all, I forgot the password. Obviously, I would never refuse to decrypt a drive because that would be willful obstruction, and I wouldn't do that. But if I were to forget the password to my flash drive, I'm not exactly sure what we could do. I mean, I'd be happy to decrypt it if I could remember, but I keep that drive in my bag just because someday I think I'm going to remember what the password is, and then I would be able to use all those company files. So that's been kind of my approach. Is I try to take a computer that is very unthreatening, because my laptop, my daily driver, my X280, boy, what would that look like if a Border Patrol agent pulls that out and looks at it? I mean, you turn it on, the first thing they're going to see is that it's encrypted with Lux. And even if I decrypted that, there are other levels of security that involve security tokens made by Yubico and all these kinds of things. By the time I even got the thing booted up just to show them that there was nothing on it, they would be convinced that there's something on it just because of the amount of hassle it took me just to restart my computer. Which is not an accident, right? It's not that I have anything to hide. It's just I think that I just believe in privacy by default. So for that reason, I would suggest either taking a dedicated laptop, or if you can't afford to do so, because I'm not an idiot, I get it, that's an expensive proposition. My second suggestion might be to do something like maybe take a second hard drive that you're not using and load that up with a second hard drive and maybe do a clean install. Again, open phones this hour, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email live at asknoahshow.com. Frank ends his email with saying, the last episode brought Bitwarden to my attention. Thank you so much. I was looking for a password manager for my YubiKeys. Finally freaking show up. That got me thinking. It should be used to store my passwords in case of death. What's the best way to do that? And then he says, sorry for ending on a downer. Not ending on a downer at all. My death package, as it were, as Dave Ramsey calls it, the legacy box, is I just have a flash drive in there, and inside of that flash drive is an encrypted KeyPass database that my wife obviously knows the password to, and that's kind of our plan if Noah gets hit by a bus. And obviously, Altispeed Technologies, there literally is an entire plan of what to do step by step should Noah get hit by a bus, so that, we don't hurt our clients or screw them or anything like that. But anyway, thank you very much, Frank, for writing in. Thank you to Ashley for writing in. We appreciate both of you. Again, you two can join the conversation live at asknoahshow.com. We'd love to take your questions. The only thing we'd ask is try to keep them a little brief, because it's something that we have to read on the air. If I have enough time, I'll go through and kind of condense them down, and then we'll have those linked for you in the show notes, so you too can read the emails in their entirety at podcast.asknoahshow.com. Now, joining me, or standing by, rather, is Patrick McBride. Now, Patrick McBride is the Senior Director of Patents for Red Hat, and we invited him on today to talk about Microsoft joining the Open Invention Network. As I explained at the beginning of the program, I think this is a very powerful and necessary organization, and who better to get their opinion, or who better to tell us what this means for the broader community than a large multi-billion-dollar company that was purchased for tens of billions of dollars, and they don't own any real intellectual property to speak of. They make their business model outside. They make their money outside of securing intellectual property with patents. And so that's the kind of people that we want to go to. Before I head over to Patrick Cooperino, is there anything that you wanted to add to the conversation? I see you jumped into our mobile room.
Hello, Noah. I just wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
I'm co-producing a hackathon that will take place in Engine Fork Working Space, Puerto Rico. And for this hackathon, the goal of the hackathon is to develop free open source software for educational purposes. Now, the software that is produced will be published on our website and distributed on Intel NUCs to 36 different schools across Puerto Rico.
Okay.
The team behind the NUCs and the distribution and we're looking for a tool to give remote maintenance to these machines. The machines will run Ubuntu and Ubuntu Mate 1804, and they'll be running under the Department of Education's network and have dynamic IP addresses. So my question is, what tools would you recommend to achieve this, to give this a simple way to give remote maintenance to these machines?
Well, are you just looking for like updates and like we got to push a package out here or install this program to all the computers?
Yes, that kind of solution.
Yep, I got you. Ansible is the answer. And we're going to have an expert on Ansible on coming up in a couple of weeks, because it has really piqued my interest in the last couple of days. And we're going to dive into that more. So make sure to tune in and hear that episode. But Ansible is the answer to your question.
Definitely. Thank you very much. One more question.
Sure.
Looking for alternate for options, we found this service called DW Service. Have you heard of it?
I have not. Tell me about it. I have not.
It seems to be a network of different. It's like a way for a way to have like a mesh network of computers that are manageable remotely, so that you're able to plug into this network, and then you'll be able to access more information about the machines.
So do these machines have a graphical interface? I guess I should have asked.
The machines that we'll be distributing, yes, they have.
Okay, so I just looked up DW service. So if you want that kind of remote control, I might suggest you take a look at Simple Help. That's what we're using to do exactly that. I had assumed you were talking about servers.
And not in this case. These are more meant for desktop use.
Okay. Yeah, check out Simple Help. I think what you'll find is that it doesn't rely on somebody else's service or somebody else's product or some other company to exist for you to continue to maintain remote access to those machines.
All right. I'm looking at the website right now.
Awesome. Yeah, if you have any other questions, let me know. I appreciate it. And thanks for joining us in our interactive Mumbo Room. Again, phone lines are open, 1-855-450-NOAA. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@AskNoahShow.com. Now, without further ado, Patrick McBride from Red Hat. Hey, Patrick, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Thanks, Noah. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. For those that maybe aren't familiar with the Open Invention Network, what is the OIN and why are they a necessary organization?
Sure. That's a great question. So the Open Invention Network was formed back in the mid-2000s, about 2005. And the reason it was formed is because Linux was a growing force in the marketplace, and many, I think, forward-thinking organizations could see that it was going to be an important player, and yet it seemed destined, at least at the time, to be led by some smaller companies, companies such as Red Hat, for example, at the time, and another player was SUSE Linux. And the companies that helped form Open Invention Network had in mind that they would create a kind of a safe space with respect to patents around Linux, so that Linux wouldn't have to worry about patents from the companies that were participating in the Open Invention Network. And so companies like IBM and Sony and Philips and Red Hat and NEC and what was at the time Novell and most people think of as SUSE Linux helped form the organization. The first important element of the Open Invention Network and the thing that really made it unique at the time was the fact that it owned its own patents. So there were some patents that came out of the dot-com bust of the late 90s and early 2000s. They came from a company called Commerce One. And those patents were purchased and then donated to the Open Invention Network. And the Open Invention Network was in a position to assert those if it needed to defend Linux. And that was, to my knowledge, really the first time that an entity like that had been set up specifically to defend a technology separate and apart from an operating company. The other element of the Open Invention Network, which is really the thing that over time has grown into probably the most important element of it, is a cross-license that is specific to what they call the Linux system, which is a very broadly defined list of upwards of well over 2,000 packages, including, of course, the Linux kernel, but also lots of stuff up in user space and many things that you would associate with a typical Linux distribution. And all the companies that sign up to the Open Invention Network cross-license agree to not assert their patents against the Linux system as to any other member of the Open Invention Network. And it is now, by our reckoning, the largest patent cross-license in history. It has something like 2,500 licensees. And importantly, it is royalty-free. So we have lots and lots of very large companies, but we also have very small projects. We have individuals who've signed up. You can sign up for free, and lots of people do.
Does the OIN actually own these patents? Do they acquire them and then they hold them themselves, or is it just an agreement between these participating organizations?
Well, so there are two different aspects to the Open Invention Network. So there are the patents that they own themselves, and then there is the patent cross-license. So let's start with the patents that they own. So those started out, they owned these Commerce One patents, which were purchased back in 2005. And that portfolio, I believe, has grown to hundreds of assets that they own now. They have a budget which is funded by the owners of the Open Invention Network, including Red Hat and IBM and others, and they use that to purchase patents out on the open market, and they own those, and they license them to all Open Invention Network members. But they're also in a position if an operating company came along and wanted to assert its patents against an OIN licensee or member with respect to the Linux system, then they would be in a position to assert those patents or perhaps sell them or loan them to the defendant so it could defend itself against the patent claim. And in that way, they help protect the Linux system. And like I said, that comprises a couple of hundred patents. The other part of OIN is this patent cross-license that covers, so it means that the patents owned by members and licensees are licensed to one another with respect to the Linux system. So those patents Open Invention Network does not own. They're just licensed through the network to other network members, and those patents would be quite literally millions of patents. They're because if you as you can imagine, add up all the patents owned by the 2,500 licensees, and it amounts to millions of patents.
On October 10th, Microsoft joined the OIN. So does this mean that probably Microsoft is one of these participating organizations where they probably still own their patents, but they are just choosing not to aggressively pursue people if it infringes on the Linux system? Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. In fact, I would say it's not just aggressively pursue; it's just pursue it all. They, if you are your typical say Linux distributor and you are a member of the Open Invention Network, through the license of the Open Invention Network, Microsoft has committed to not using its patents against the Linux system, which is probably what comprises, I would guess, somewhere between 70 and 90% of whatever Linux distribution you're using.
What do you think Microsoft's motivation for joining the Open Invention Network is, given their history of closed source patented products and software licenses?
Well, I have to start with a caveat, which is that, of course, they can speak better for themselves about their own motivations, and
Sure.
I think they've provided a lot of materials in regard to what has motivated them and so on, and I've looked those over and find them largely persuasive, and they seem to make sense to me. My own take would be that Microsoft has come to realize the benefits of the FOSS development and distribution model. That's something that Red Hat has been championing for decades, and in a sense, we like to think that people have kind of come around to our way of viewing things, and maybe one of those entities is Microsoft. And part of really truly joining that community and being able to reap all the benefits of it is that you've got to be a legitimate contributor and participant, not just a user of the community. And I think what that means in this day and age, given the prevalence of the Open Invention Network license, is you got to sign up to OIN. The Open Invention Network is so broad and so pervasive that I think any entity wanting to be taken seriously in the open source community or the free software community needs to seriously think about joining it. And if they haven't, questions will be asked. And I think that's why Microsoft joined.
So it's really about becoming a citizen of the community and not a recipient of the community. And it's essentially Microsoft putting their money where their mouth is. But when they say, we care about Linux, we love Linux, we want to support Linux because we understand and recognize that Linux is our technical future.
Yeah, I think that's right, or at least part of their technical future. I mean,
Sure.
I think the FOSS development and distribution model, the whatever license happens to be your favorite, I think they want to benefit from that and they want to contribute to it. And they realize in order to benefit fully from it, they have to contribute to it. And so I think what you're seeing is the fruit of many, many years of changing attitudes, in some cases changing executives, and just the company coming around to a different point of view. And I think that's now bearing fruit.
How does Microsoft joining the Open Invention Network benefit or otherwise affect Red Hat, the company?
Well, like many companies, Red Hat has had to concern itself with lots of different operating companies out there. I mean, we if you go all the way back to 2002, we pioneered what we called our patent promise at the time, and in that patent promise, we talked about the large operating companies out there who had thousands and thousands of software patents, and how we viewed that as a significant risk to Red Hat. And that situation really has not changed over the years. I mean, there are still huge companies out there with enormous portfolios, and we have to address that situation in some manner. One of those companies has been Microsoft. It's well known that at times they've said some fairly aggressive things about patents and Linux and open source and such, and those statements were not lost on us over the years. And so we've had to concern ourselves with what they may or may not choose to do with their patents. And so them joining OIN represents, I think, a significant reduction in risk to a company like Red Hat and to other members of the community, because it's just one more thing we can point to and feel comfortable that they want to participate as a productive member of the community and are not looking to, I guess I like to use the word tax or levy a sort of a patent tax or a feature hobble products and offerings and projects and such. That is not their strategy or goal.
It becomes clear to you that Microsoft has the same end goal in mind that Red Hat does, as do everybody else that is part of the OIN network.
Well, I'm not sure that's quite. I mean, they have a very different business model, right?
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all. I mean, Red Hat is a commercial company. We have shareholders, and we have obligations to them, and I think it's a testament to the brilliance of the FOSS development and distribution model that a company like Red Hat can be so successful building its business on that model, and so I think we've probably gone. Among sort of medium-sized companies, we've probably gone about as far in that regard as anyone that I can think of, and we've been very successful at it. I would say a company like Microsoft, again, they can speak for themselves.
Sure.
But I certainly don't think they're just instantly going to adopt our same business model, but I think what they are going to do is be looking to reap the benefits of this open development model wherever they can is my impression, and I would encourage them in that regard. So I think and I think that's the beauty of the Open Invention Network. I mean, if you think about how different a company like Philips, Sony, IBM, Toyota, NEC, Red Hat. I mean, these are all radically different companies with radically different business models, offerings, different sizes, different patent portfolios that they're bringing to the table. It's a testament to the power of Linux and open source that all those companies can agree on the need to protect Linux in the way that they have.
Absolutely. What do you think, Patrick, Microsoft's decision to come to the OIN means for the broader community outside of Red Hat, the Linux community at large?
I mean, I think it means a couple of things. One of them is hopefully that community will find that they have more and more interaction and positive collaboration and such with people who are coming from Microsoft. I think that, I mean, there's no reason why Microsoft has some excellent engineers and personnel, and I think they've got a lot to bring to the table. And so I think over time, this should herald increasing participation by Microsoft in various projects to the benefit of everyone. So that's one thing. To the extent that people that are in the community have concerned themselves with some of the things that Microsoft has said over the years about patents and Linux and open source and stuff, I would think that this would be comforting to them and perhaps a sign that a corner has been turned. And I would hope that they would feel even more confident about what they're doing. I do think there probably are some technologies over time that folks should see available in various Linux distributions. The one that comes to mind, I think, is TrueType,
Yes.
which I believe is in the what's it called? I think it's the FreeType package, as I recall. I think you should see that enabled in certain circumstances, and because that should be covered by the license. And hopefully people will find that beneficial.
As an open source guy working for, one of the world's largest open source companies, how has Microsoft been to work with from a patent perspective?
Well, my experience at Red Hat has been very positive with them. You may recall, Red Hat entered into an agreement with them a few years ago, and I was one of the folks who helped put that together and negotiate it. And we found them to be, of course, they're always very good at what they do. They're well versed in the law. They are clear about what they are trying to achieve. And I guess one of the things I've always appreciated about Microsoft over the years is they when they say they're going to do something, they agree to do something in an agreement or whatever, they will do it. And they will. I mean, they will do it in the manner that you had in mind when you negotiated the agreement. And I can say that about them, probably going back well over a decade. I think that's been true. Of course, anytime you're working with another party, I mean, their goals and point of view and so on are not going to be the same as yours. But I feel like I've gotten to see some of these changing attitudes and so on occur over time. And it's been very heartening to see. So overall, I'd say it's been one of the more interesting aspects of my career has been to try to work out some of these issues with Microsoft.
Integrity is such a large portion of business, so it's really great to hear that, especially coming from someone who works at Red Hat, who, I consider Red Hat to be a company of great integrity. So that means a lot coming from you and Red Hat. Tell me a little bit about the LOT Network. So
the LOT Network was founded by Google, Red Hat, and Canon back in 2014. And it was really Google's idea. An attorney at Google named Eric Schulman was its champion within Google. And I really give a ton of credit to Google. I mean, they were behind this thing from the beginning, and they wanted it to be exactly what they said it would be. And let me just describe what that is. So,
please.
The idea behind the LOT Network is that companies would, or individuals, if they wanted to, can join this network, and it has no immediate impact on their patents when they join. So it doesn't. So they can continue to do all the things they've been doing with their patents before they joined, but what happens when they join is there is a thing that let's just call it I'll call it a springing license. Okay, so there's this thing called a springing license that is attached to every one of their patents, and it doesn't have any impact while they own the patents. But if they sell a patent and it eventually falls into the hands of what we call a non-practicing entity, or NPE, or some folks have at times called them patent trolls. If it falls into the hands of a company like that, then all of a sudden this springing license springs into life. And what it means is that all the members of the network get a full license to that patent and never have to worry about it ever again, meaning that the troll cannot go after them. So let's just say I'll make up a company. Let's say let's call it Megacorp X. Megacorp X is a member of the LOT network, and they sell a patent, and it eventually becomes owned by a non-practicing entity. As soon as it's owned by that non-practicing entity, then Red Hat and every other member of the network get a license to the patent, and that troll cannot come after us. And this has the effect of addressing one of the largest reasons that non-practicing entities exist, which is they're able to get patents from operating companies. If you go on the LOT Network website, you'll see they've got some graphics and so on there that teach people about just how many patents that non-practicing entities use actually come from operating companies, and it's most of them. And so if you can interrupt that flow, you can significantly address the issue with non-practicing entities. And the LOT network is a raging success. It now has 250 members. One of its most prominent members that joined a few weeks ago is Microsoft, which was an amazing thing, but they've also got many other members. You can see them listed on the website. It's kind of a who's who of Silicon Valley and other high-tech centers. And anyway, it's very exciting to be associated with. By my estimation, easily 10% or more of all patents that are alive today in the world are covered by the LOT network. And if you think about how many patents are out there and what that may mean for the patent troll problem, it has already played a significant role in reducing that. And kudos to Microsoft for being willing to join that organization.
And to Google for coming up with this stuff. Makes you wonder how these people, lay in bed at night and come up with this stuff to think of these very creative, very ingenious solutions to these complicated problems.
Absolutely, yeah. I that's one of the fun parts of my job is I get to work with some really smart people that are just at the top of their game, and it's been a real pleasure. And I very much enjoyed working with the Google attorneys on putting that together and really making it into a serious organization. And I think that's why so many people are joining it, is because they see that it does exactly what it says it does, which is address the patent troll problem.
Businesses exist to make money. We all know that. And many companies believe that patents are a way to ensure that their company stays profitable. Is there anything that we, the community, can do, or we, the purchaser of a lot of these products, can do to make it more welcoming for these large organizations to come and join the OIN, so that they look up and say, yes, we're going to give up some of our intellectual rights in that we're not going to pursue other people for using technology, but at the same time, we still stand to make a buck. We're not going to starve by doing it.
Well, it's a very interesting question. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is something I said earlier in the interview, which is that I believe OIN has gotten to the point where it is so large and pervasive in the community that any large entity purporting to collaborate with the community, to associate itself with the community, wishing to be viewed positively by the community and to reap all the benefits of that, I think has to join the Open Invention Network. And if they don't, then there's going to be a big question mark about them. And that fact is significantly based on the views of the community members that you were just talking about. I think to the extent that that developers and such have a positive view of the Open Invention Network, view it as something that gives them comfort about working with a large entity and their motives and purposes and so on. And to the extent that they voice that, I think it just helps to make it even more of a prerequisite for someone fully joining the community. And so that's probably the first thing I would say, is just that I think it helps for developers to, hopefully they come to it after examining the Open Invention Network and what it's about and its history and so on. I think if they do, go ahead and take a hard look at it. I think you'll find that it is what it says it is, and it is a positive force in the community, and they should look well on companies that join it and look suspiciously on companies that don't.
Well, Patrick, I was very happy and excited to hear this news. I'm even more happy to hear such a positive response from yourself and from Red Hat. I think this means very great things for us, the Linux community at large. Patrick McBride is his name, Senior Director of Patents for Red Hat, and a guest this hour on the Ask Noah Show. Patrick, thanks so much for taking the time to be here. We'll get you back on the program real soon.
Thank you, Noah.
1-855-450-NOAH. The phone lines are open, 855-450-6624. Email live@asknoahshow.com. Just a couple of minutes as we wind down the Ask Noah program. Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central. My friends from Destination Linux join me. Again, special episode. We invite you to try it and stump us, the Linux chumps. By the way, speaking of Destination Linux, if you want to get more of Noah and you want to get Noah in relationship to some other people, like you want to hear some debate and some discussion, I invite you to check out the last episode of Destination Linux. That's a video podcast where we discuss Linux issues. And of course, last week was a particularly interesting episode because we talked about actually, I guess it's this week because we record on Fridays and then they release, I think it's on Wednesdays. I think that's right. Anyway, check out the next episode of Destination Linux, whatever time or date that comes out. We talk about the Red Hat debacle and them getting bought out by IBM. Now, my view has not changed. I still think it's a positive thing. I think Red Hat knows what they're doing. I know it's crazy. I know there are those that want to make fun of the hybrid cloud and that, Red Hat is a crazy company, doesn't know what they're doing. I think they've got it set. I think Red Hat is on the right track. And I think that this is going to enable IBM and Red Hat to reach all new levels. So again, tomorrow, my friends from Destination Linux, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., join us for our regular time. Jason Donafield from WireGuard, he's going to join us, and he's going to give us a detailed deep dive into an extremely yet simple, fast, and modern VPN that utilizes state-of-the-art cryptography. We keep getting questions about VPN and VPN technology. Here's your chance to hear it from the guy who's an expert on it. And now, this may not happen before our 100th episode of the Ask Noah Show, but Eric Dubois from Arco Linux, he's going to join us and show us how easy or how a distro that is specifically designed as an easy-to-use Arch-based distro built with the express purpose of teaching you how to use Linux. Sane defaults, secure by default, and usable straight out of the box. I don't know what to tell you. If you haven't played with Arco Linux, then you're missing out because it's an absolutely fantastic way for you to not just use Linux, but learn Linux. Let me tell you something. The thing that separates the samurais from the kids that play with kitchen knives is understanding what all of those commands you paste into the command line do. And a lot of you out there don't. A lot of you out there don't know what it is you're typing. You just copy and paste. Monkey see, monkey do. Arco Linux is the way that you can learn what those commands do. Hey guys, did you know this episode is available as a downloadable podcast? That's right. To subscribe to the feed or download the latest episode, visit podcast.asknoahshow.com. There you'll find not only the latest episode, but everything we talked about, all of the articles, materials, everything referenced in this episode. You want to get the latest? Follow us on Twitter at Ask Noah Show. The Ask Noah Show continues next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central. That's tomorrow. Huge thanks to Vox Telesis for providing our phone system. Better producer Sarah, our call creator. This hour, the show may be over, but there's plenty more content for you 24/7. AskNoahShow.com.